A coworker walks up to you and asks you point blank if you're a Democrat or Republican. You know that this coworker of yours believes very strongly in the opposite party as yourself, and you're worried that if you tell them the truth, you might receive further future discrimination or judgment. So what do? Do you tell them the truth and show that you have honest and firm convictions, but you might face negative repercussions? Or do you refuse and show that you're hard-headed, elusive, and that also might have negative repercussions? So in the workplace, it can be difficult to know where to draw the lines on personal disclosure. And that's why creating physical and personal boundaries in the workplace are vital to reducing stress and increasing a sense of control in this workplace. So boundaries do three things. They protect, they clarify, and they identify our personal limits, whether in a physical, personal, emotional, or spiritual manner. And having boundaries upheld and maintained can result in a happier workplace and even a higher productivity because of the less amount of stress and worry that would take place. And before moving on, it should be noted that every single person's limits and boundaries vary and they're different. No list is going to be identical, and that's okay. But it's important to establish the lines of what you will and will not do and what you're comfortable and uncomfortable, so that in the future, you're less likely to face discomfort. So the first boundary to discuss is the physical boundary. And in the United States, physical contact is not welcomed by most individuals in the workplace, and it can even be misconstrued as an unwelcome sexual gesture. To, of course, avoid that, it's best, it's most respectful and wise to keep your hands to yourself at all times. Of course, when welcoming someone, congratulating someone, a handshake, a high five, it's all appropriate and welcome in that scenario. And if you have a firm, established relationship with someone, a hug is also great, but it's important to have that relationship, have that foundation so that no lines are crossed. Additionally, as a rule of thumb, when speaking to a coworker, it's important to maintain about an arm's length distance when speaking so that you know that they're never uncomfortable with how close you are when speaking. And secondly, is the personal boundary, which is very different than the physical because it's so different for each person, and it requires self-reflection to think about your personal convictions, whether that's politics, religion, personal background, history, and so on. Think about when thinking about those things. If any feelings arise such as anger, resentment, guilt, extreme sadness, if any of those come up when you're thinking about such things, it's a red flag as a boundary that you would want to create because it would make you uncomfortable when speaking about it, especially in a workplace. And everyone has things they prefer not to share. You're not alone, and that's all right. Someone should never feel pressured or coerced into saying something or doing something that they are not comfortable doing. Now that we've established the things that we are not comfortable with in the workplace, how do we create those boundaries? How do we establish them, and how do we express them in the workplace? Now, oftentimes people feel that they should give in, say yes, or be uncomfortable because that is what the good person or what a good friend does. But in fact, the reality is it's not good for you. It can drain you, it can overextend you, and you can even be taken advantage of. So this means that an open and honest conversation with coworkers and managers or bosses, it should happen, and the sooner the better. This doesn't mean that you sit them all down and you confront them and read off your list of off-topic conversations, but instead facilitate a conversation. Identify a boundary, ask them if they would accept it and follow it, and that way you're giving them power to respond and have some cooperation in the establishment. And if possible, it is important to verbalize these boundaries before they're crossed so that you don't have to go up to a person and say, I wish you hadn't done that. Because when you do that, it's definitely more passive, can be unclear because it happened in the past, and it's less effective for the future. Unfortunately, it is inevitable, however, that someone will decide to cross your boundary that you've worked hard to create, and you must be ready to know how to respond. Instead of in the moment with anger or frustration, if you've practiced responding in an honest manner, the result will be much more good overall. and especially if you have some honesty, some kindness, and forgiveness, because that's what you would like in return. And lastly, everyone should practice saying no. Saying no is a valuable skill that everyone should know how to do, and so that you can avoid being taken advantage of. People will most often respect and honor what you've said. So overall, workplace boundaries are vital, creating a safe, secure, and happy workplace environment that everyone should have. Thank you.